Hello. What's up, everybody? It's Yoshinator195 coming at you with another Black Ops 6 classic old school COD commentary. And in today's episode, I'm going to tackle the question of, should you do a PhD in chemical engineering? A very, very specific niche topic that may or may not affect you, probably won't, and maybe there's a good thing. But maybe also it can help people out if you're thinking about doing a PhD in any kind of engineering. But I will specifically talk about my experience when I did my PhD in chemical engineering. And just a little bit of lessons. I'm not going to go into the whole story for this episode right now, but some important considerations that I kind of took away. Because what I really wanted to, tackle is what I would have done differently looking back on the chemical engineering experience, particularly during my time in my master's and during my bachelor year when I was at uni. Because I think they mentioned when you go into like a field like chemical engineering, do a little bit of chemistry, and it's also required as part of, the first year syllabus, and you undertake that, but afterwards, not really. I would make it a definite prerequisite if you're thinking about doing a PhD specifically. So, yes, maybe those course advisors were right in that sense, because if you just do a master's and go out to work as a chemical engineer, wonderful. You're all good there. You chances are you really won't even tackle any theoretical equations, let alone be, tasked with trying to figure out the chemistry of whatever you're working with. And one of my biggest gripes when it comes to chemical engineering is that fact, in the sense that most of the jobs there are like, we've got a process, we understand it, just maintain it. You're there to troubleshoot if anything goes wrong. And take fertilizers, there's the Haber-Bosch process. You're not there to invent something more efficient or new. Just make sure it's there. It's all good. As I almost think about rage baiting here on the Warzone, because our squad is eliminated. Oh god, it was one of the worst games. Don't worry, there's another one coming up. But essentially, it's we've got something there, don't worry about it, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel per se. However, if you're doing a PhD, that, to me, I didn't realize the level of chemistry that would have been useful to me. That, to the point where I say it's almost damn required. And I know there's a lot of PhDs, out there that, a couple of my colleagues, not all of them did chemistry, but one of them did, and I really saw the value that he gained from it compared to everybody else. Just from being able to understand the why. Because ultimately, that is the key difference between an engineer and a chemist. To me, I always thought, based from that experience, and still to this day, chemical engineers are just monkeys who know how to push knobs and understand the basics of what's happening. Chemists are the real geniuses. Same with physicists. They just get the science to another level that chemical engineers don't. And because they understand more about the actual process, how bonds form, how atoms work, what kind of reactions are possible, it informs so much greatly on the engineering side of things, the conditions, but it really informs them on understanding why something works and what could work in the future because of that understanding. If you get what I mean, they can almost not necessarily predict, but they can kind of creatively brainstorm if I put those chemicals and those bonds in this kind of reaction, then if I introduce maybe say a little bit more hydrogen, I could form this kind of product because this kind of bonding should occur when I have this combination at these conditions. But if you didn't know what kind of bonding was possible, you have absolutely no clue at what you're going to do in the future in that sense. And you're almost just like throwing darts on the board, hoping something gets landed, like you're just hoping to hit a target almost blindly. But by understanding at a like fundamental atomic level, you just understand so much more about what could be possible and how to design experiments in the future. And that's really like, that's the bread and butter of like PhDs, understanding the why and being able to come up with interesting designs and experimental plans that kind of create something new and hopefully discover something new, even if it's something just an efficient process. It doesn't have to be a completely new thing. So, man, I think my number one advice for people entering into doing a PhD for chemical engineering is do a chemistry freaking major on its own. Do that in your undergrad. You don't have to be a master's at it. Like, if you can do that, great. But just do like a bachelor of chemistry, because, man, that just carries so much more weight in the lab setting. And I kind of had to like learn a little bit of that like on the fly, or at least like just the basics of what I could understand, like that was most important for my experiment. But really, to this day, I'm so grateful that I met this individual from the actual chem department who has a genuine PhD in chemistry. I contacted him to help me out with all things chemistry-wise, and he was very nice and lovely and took me through explaining why this occurs and why that occurs, and gave me ideas of what we could try as well. And just like being around him, I was like, this guy is the true like scientist. And like, I'm not trying to say that in like, I'm trying to be humble or anything like that, but he helped me out so tremendously that like I started feeling like more of a project manager. Like I would still have input and I would still like have ideas, and I'd research things, and my biggest strength was that like I wasn't so involved in niche expertise, that I could kind of take different ideas from different domains and put them together. And I'll go into that maybe in a whole nother video, but essentially the book Range by David Epstein kind of covers it, just thinking about an idea that worked in one domain and applying it to something else. That's how a breakthrough can occur. And I was great for like the bigger picture kind of stuff in that sense. But when it came to the chemistry, man, he was the whiz. He was the wizard that could just help me out. And if I had the skills like that going into the PhD, I think everything would have been so much more of a breeze. And it's funny, like I could see even like my professor who didn't have the chemistry same skills experience, and he told me like, look, you're not expected to do that much into the chemistry of it, like we're going to publish into a chemical engineering journal. So to his credit, to be fair, I'm like, I recognize that, and it's not like we're writing for chem journals. But when you do write some sort of scientific paper, the most important part about the paper, apart from maybe like getting good results or whatever, or just finding interesting results, I'm not going to say like you have to get things working, but it's actually the discussion and understanding why something didn't work just as much as understanding why it did work. And having a chem kind of mindset can help you kind of put even just a fair basic mind map of this molecule interacts with this radical to create this formation, whatever, is so like useful and vital compared to like not knowing and just being like, well, I just put this and that together and just did this, But, I'm not even like, I'm also skimming some broad strokes in the sense that like, this taught me so much more, this whole experience taught me so much more lab skills, just chem analytical lab skills, because like getting results is one thing, but then actually learning how to analyze them is a completely other thing. And it's like, okay, now I have to learn NMR. What's a GCFID? What's a GCMS? And these are all random terms that maybe people don't know of, but like gas chromatography, nuclear magnetic resonance. How do these machines work? And how do I actually analyze my products? Because man, if you can't analyze your products, what's the point of doing the experiments? It's like, it's all like these interesting problem things that, problem chokeholds or problem bottlenecks that you're like, okay, I have to actually learn how to do this. I'm going to have to learn a little chemistry of why this works. And again, you don't have to go too into depth of like knowing how the car works. You just have to know how to drive it. Yes, okay, that's very important, So it's I'm not saying you need to know all the thermodynamics of how a car engine works. You can just, be taught how to drive it, but it does help knowing something. You know what I mean? Like it's like, oh, okay, if I do make this product and I'm getting gases, I know from my chemistry skills that I can use a GCFID, or if there's a GCMS available, then that's going to be, okay, that solves that problem. And if I've got liquid products, I've got maybe methanol, formic acid, okay, what's the best way to analyze them? Oh, I remember, I can just use an NMR machine because I think LCMS is going to not work for that. Just things like that. It's like, and if you do a chemistry degree, chances are you would have done that. You would have already learnt the skill to learn how to drive the car already. So you don't have to spend hours and wasting time to do that in your PhD. Because, I guess it's part of it and it's all, it's all in you. But if you could just spend more time on researching and figuring out why and doing different experiments and not being like, the less training you have to do, it's obviously kind of a beneficial thing. So I'm rambling on, but if you are actually considering doing a degree or a PhD in chemical engineering specifically, please think about doing a chem degree. And if you are even doing a chemical engineering degree, throw that in there, like, because you've not only got the time to do another kind of degree, double degree, and I know that you might not ever use it later on because you might be thinking, oh, I'm never going to do a PhD. Why the hell would I do a PhD? Like, just get me out there, make money. Just put it in there as a backup. It's just a safety thing. Like, you never know when you might use it. And who knows, even on the actual job in your chemical engineering profession, you might be able to be like, you know what, I actually have a brilliant new idea. And it kind of only comes from you doing that chem degree. So that's my 2 cents. I feel like it can't hurt to do it. Otherwise, just don't take my advice and go party. I don't know what you tell. Everything's a trade-off in life. If you want the free time at uni, go ahead. But for me, I definitely look back and think like, man, if I was going to do this PhD again, I definitely would do a chemistry degree. And man, chemistry's fun. Like that's the bread and butter. It's like, I'm already interested in chemistry. I shouldn't have stopped it after high school. I loved it at high school. Yes, it was very hard that first year of uni, but definitely something that's not too far out of my challenge area. So anyways, I think if I had to go back and do it again, I would do a double degree, Chem Eng and the chemistry. But that's it for me. Thanks for watching and enjoy this epic stuck. I just love that clip at the end where I stuck him. That's the whole point of this video. Just threw that fire stick. I forget what it's called. I just stuck him in the fire stick. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Oh, GG, boys. That's it. It's not happening.
GG, boys. GG.
We can.
One more.